Hi there, I'm Nick from ATP, and this is a quick tutorial on how to enhance colour saturation in Photoshop. Perhaps you've got a dull image that you've taken, like the one here where it's perfectly sharp, well exposed, but it's not really popping out at you. Now I'm going to show you a few techniques here just to allow the image to pop a little bit more and add some colour saturation and a bit of contrast to the shot. Now this was shot originally in RAW with a neutral mode, and I haven't processed it in RAW. I've just opened the shot in Photoshop for the purposes of this tutorial. Normally I'd do a lot of this work in the RAW, but maybe you've got some JPEGs lying around that could do with some work, so let's just kind of get going with that. So first of all, I would go to Image, Adjustments, Levels, and check what's happening here. Now you can see this area shows, if I bring this across, adds contrast to the image and it closes down the blacks and dark areas. This area will enhance the whites. Now normally I like this to be flat with nothing there, which means you can kind of add lightness to the whole image without blowing out and actually killing the highlights. So what you can do in this situation, you can see here we've got some very bright areas in the shot that I don't really want to work on, but I do want to increase the brightness of the rest of the shot. So if we cancel that for now, we go to Select, Color Range, Highlights, and then we play around with the range and fuzziness until we've pretty much got just the building selected and the reflections. So if you do the fuzziness too much, you're going to have everything in the shot, the sky and the clouds and everything is going to get worked on. So if we bring that pretty much down to 0 and then just change the range until we've just got the white buildings in the shot that we want to work on, and like I said, the reflections, leave it about there, click OK, and now we've selected all of those buildings. Now obviously we don't want to work on those, so we're going to right click and select the inverse. So now we're selecting everything other than the white buildings. But if we processed it at this point, then the edges would really show up. So we right click again and feather, and I'm going to go for 10 to 15 pixels. This is a large image, it's a 23 megapixel image or something, or 30 megapixel image. So I'm going to feather it by 15 pixels, and that just smooths out the edges and gets rid of some of the ones we don't particularly want to work on. So now if I go to Image, Adjustments, Levels, you can see it's a lot flatter there. There are some peaked highlights, so I could go tweak it a bit more to get rid of that. But what I'm actually going to do now is first of all bring the contrast up a bit by bringing that over ever so slightly. You can see it's going slightly darker in some of the darker areas. And then we're going to bring this over and just brighten the rest of the image up, only to about the base of where it starts to increase there. Click OK, deselect everything, and already we've kind of made a bit of a difference to the shot. Now the next thing I'm going to do is go to Image, Adjustments, Curves, and make some very slight adjustments here. So if we go to the top of the curve here, it's called an S curve, so it kind of goes a bit like that. So if we just go about 3/4 of the way up here and just pull that up ever so slightly, if you can see if I pull it all the way up, it goes too bright. So we're just going to put it up ever so slightly to increase the brightness, and then just ever so slightly again to add a touch more contrast. It's a very slight S curve, and again each photo is going to be different, so you just do it to taste on how you want the image to look yourself. So I'm going to leave that one there, and then the final thing we're going to do is just go to Image, Adjustments, Hue and Saturation, and this is where it gets a bit kind of it's up to you how you do it. Some people like really heavily saturated images, other people like them looking a bit duller. I'm just going to increase this ever so slightly just to increase the saturation of the whole image, plus 12, and you can see there we've increased the colours on the boats and the bricks and the blue skies and everything. Now I'm going to cancel that for now. There's another way of doing that. You can actually go to the sponge tool over here, set it to saturate, and I normally have the flow set at around 5%. Rather than going up to say 100% and going crazy with it, it just oversaturates completely with one swipe. So if I bring this back down to 5% and then just remove that, then what you can do is actually layer up the color saturation for each particular part of the image. So I may want a little bit more for the sea down here, add a bit more, and then perhaps a bit more for the sky up above. Wait for that to finish doing its thing, and a bit more up here, and then just maybe 1 or 2 swoops across the boats and the brick walls there, just to add a bit of color saturation to those. And you can see now it's looking a lot better. And the way to illustrate that is if I go to File and Revert, it'll go back to the original image, and you can see the difference made just by using those few little techniques. So I hope that helps and look forward to seeing you on the next video.